Welcome to The Real Dish Show, the place where we peel back the onion on your fabulously fit life. I'm Chef Mareya, the fit foodie. And with over 30 years of experience in the health and wellness world, I'm here to guide you on this journey to uncover the keys to living a vibrant, balanced life. Whether you're seeking practical tips for nutrition, fitness, mental well-being, or simply craving insightful conversations with experts in the field, you've come to the right place. Now get ready to embark on a holistic adventure toward a healthier, happier you and make shift happen for good. Dr. Levy, it's so nice to have you on the show.
Happy to be here.
Really excited to dive into this subject with you because for so many of our listeners, I talk about supplementation all the time, but as we all know, supplementation is not all equal. I know that you're an expert in a particular type of delivery, which is liposome encapsulation. Can you just share a little bit more with us about what it is and how it works?
Sure. A liposome is a small round vesicle, okay? And it was deliberately designed in the 1960s in a laboratory to imitate a real cell. Okay, by that I mean an internal water-soluble area where you could contain something water-soluble and an outer membrane that was literally identical to the type of membrane that surrounds every cell in the body. For example, you may or may not have heard of exosomes. That's becoming a pretty fancy word these days. And an exosome is really just a very tiny liposome. Got a little internal core, and it's got the same sort of wall out there. And you're seeing, or we're now realizing, that exosomes and the other vesicles that are of different sizes are real, all forms of intercellular, not intracellular, but intercellular, between cells, not in a cell, communication. For a long time, scientists, being somewhat cynical, just thought that exosomes were intracellular garbage cans. They just gathered up the garbage and took it out, But obviously, or not obviously, it's turned out to be far more than that. I mean, you transfer stem cell information, all sort of different protein information, lots of information, immune factors, etc. All of these, I don't know. Some people, I don't know. I've always wondered for a long time, something that happens in one part of your body, all of a sudden, another corresponding part of your body reacts and says, well, how do they communicate with each other? How do they know what's going on? Okay. I mean, we have symmetry. So when something happens on one side, we start noticing something happening on the other side. How does that communicate? And I think this is the answer. But getting back now to the liposome, the exosome is very tiny. The liposome is also very tiny, not as tiny as an exosome, but tiny enough so that when it's in the circulation, in the blood, it can either, depending on the cell, go straight across a pore in the cell, just passively, or it'll bump up against the cell wall and then open up and deposit its cell contents, the liposome contents inside the cell, and then the liposome becomes part of the cell wall. So that's called reverse pinocytosis. It just opens up, becomes part of the cell wall, and pretty much delivers whatever it has inside it into the cell. So this was designed initially in the 1960s, and the idea back then was, I'm no fan of chemotherapy, but that's why they did it. They did it as a way to hopefully deliver smaller, less toxic doses of chemotherapy to the entire organism by having something that just had the chemotherapy tightly encapsulated and deliver a much smaller dose, but directly to different targeted cells, cancers, etc.
So would you say it's more effective in delivering to the cell versus other delivery systems?
Oh, absolutely. No, that's far and away the reason why it's so superior. And the literature then showed, and this was, like I said, in the 60s, then over the subsequent decades, they were able to show that you could pretty much encapsulate anything that was water soluble. I mean, and they have tons of different things that have been encapsulated. Not any supplements. It was really Live On Labs that came along about 21, 22 years ago, more or less. And the person, not Dr. Mr. Les Nackman, who started the company, a brilliant guy. I don't really know where he initially got his information, but he got some people together and they got this idea about using liposomes to better deliver, in this particular case, initially, vitamin C inside the cell. Mr. Nackman had his own set of problems, and he had gotten a lot of IVs of vitamin C, and he wanted to find out ways where he could get good amounts of vitamin C taken orally, much more than the regular vitamin C forms, because that's a serious drawback, especially with vitamin C, of regular supplementation. You only absorb 10, 15, maybe 20%, depending on how much you take, whereas the liposome gets completely absorbed. And once it's inside either the lymph or the blood circulation, it's then free to deliver its product into the cell. And this is so impressive that myself included, for a long time, felt, well, there's no way that you could have anything superior to putting vitamin C directly into the bloodstream intravenously to deliver your vitamin C. But in fact, that's not true, because when you put the vitamin C into the blood without encapsulation in the liposome, you need to consume energy to get it inside the cell. The liposome encapsulation allows you to deliver it inside the cell without the consumption of energy. And that's been the real big major kick. I mean, anybody that's into biology knows that the essence of biology is energy dynamics, okay? And if you can get an energy delivering substance like vitamin C from point A to point B without having to use up energy in the process, you're ahead of the game. So
that's really a game changer. I mean, I've never, I've never heard of it actually explained that way. And it makes me think, this is kind of a lead up to my next question, but is this why it's so much more effective in delivering nutrients and potentially, other drugs or, medicines to the body compared to traditional methods, is because it's not dependent on that?
Absolutely. And that's a very good point that should be underlined and emphasized and put in italics and bolded, because the whole point is virtually all pathology. I mean, there are some exceptions, but virtually all pathology is inside the cell. I mean, you can have problems outside the cell, but pretty much where you have disease or don't have disease is inside the cell. And that is always part and parcel of increased oxidation, increased oxidative stress. Well, you want to get as much vitamin C inside there as possible, but if you can bring it in without energy, that's one thing. But even when you use the IV, you will be inhibited partially of getting inside the cell by virtue of the fact that the things that you need inside the cell to deliver the vitamin C, like ATP for the active transports, there's going to be less of it there because of the oxidative stress. So you're already impaired in your ability to get what you need inside the cell to deal with the process. Whereas when you can just push it in or usher it in with the liposome, again, you're way ahead of the game.
It's almost like, I have this just kind of analogy as a chef. You want to, infuse flavor into something. You can either, ladle it in, or you can actually just cut little micro cuts into a protein and feed it in. And you're basically saying we're doing those micro cuts, not really, but we're feeding into the cell versus hoping it's going to absorb. It's more of a direct delivery system.
Absolutely. That's a very good way of looking at it. Yes.
The chef hat never leaves me. So when we talk about liposomes, I mean, are they more effective in actually protecting the active ingredients and enhancing bioavailability? Because I think that's another thing that people often, will ask is like, okay, I'm taking these supplements, but am I just peeing them out? Or, I'm taking this particular, protein or whatever, and is my body actually using it? I mean, let's talk a little bit about bioavailability and how does the body actually absorb the nutrient and take it in?
First of all, it's important for anyone listening to this to understand exactly what bioavailability is. Bioavailability means you're getting the product or the agent that you want where it's needed most in performing its metabolic function. Many people, many scientists, many doctors think that's the blood. No, not really. For some things, it's the blood. If you have, let's say, a toxin in the bloodstream and you want to attack the toxin, then your point of bioavailability is inside the blood. But if you have a disease process going on inside the cell, your point of bioavailability is getting it inside the cell. So you have to remember that bioavailability means, am I getting the agent to where it's needed most, and how efficiently am I doing it? Now, in the case also of liposomes with regard to absorption, that's another thing about the liposome. Most things in the gut are absorbed as water-soluble agents, amino acids, carbohydrates, but the lipids, the fats, and the little cell wall is actually made up of a bilipid layer, is perceived by the gut as a little fat. And it's very small, so it's not processed in the same way. Bottom line is, the liposome not only gets virtually 100% absorbed long before it gets way down in the gut, but it's also very effectively delivered intact into the lymph system, or all the way through the lymph system until it goes to the thoracic duct and goes into the bloodstream. So whenever you assimilate a liposome, you're initially, shall we say, feeding its contents to the immune cells that surround the gut, of which there are many. A very large portion of your immune system literally surrounds the intestine. One other thing you mentioned that's important too is you were talking about sensitivity of the stomach. This is probably at least one of the cleanest and neatest mechanisms of the liposome, because certainly there are some things that you take that irritate your stomach, cause stomach upset. Well, with a liposome encapsulation, that doesn't happen. Also, there are some things that you take that the stomach acids and the other things going on in the gut are going to disrupt or metabolize before it gets assimilated. That gets blocked too. So by being inside the liposome, the substance is being protected from irritating you, and you're protecting it from being degraded by the enzymes. And so whatever you have in the liposome eventually makes its way inside the lymphatic circulation or the blood without the payload, if you will, of being degraded or being attenuated.
I think this is so important because many people are suffering from gut issues. I mean, they already have microbiome problems, and then they are taking these different supplements. And if the gut is not able to absorb or process, or there's dysfunction there, like it's kind of like, well, we are just peeing it out. We're not actually utilizing what we're taking, right?
Well, that's an excellent point. I don't know that I've actually thought of that particular angle before, but because of its ability to be so effectively absorbed, it's pretty much into the system, whereas something else that you take unencapsulated is going to be going more distally into the intestine and interacting more with the abnormal microbiome, maybe the leaky gut, maybe some other things going on there. So in the sense, if you will, the liposome gets in and out of there before it even has to interact with those agents. So it's
like the VIP line, go straight to the front. We don't even have to stand in line. I like that. I don't like lines. So let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned, the lipid as part of the cell wall. Can you talk a little bit about how liposomes actually help to enhance fat soluble vitamins like vitamin C? Like, how does, if somebody is taking, well, let's just kind of leave it at that. I don't want to overcomplicate the question, but how does a liposome, and lipo meaning fat, kind of enhance that fat absorption?
Okay, well, first of all, in case there was a little confusion, vitamin C is water soluble, so it's inside inside the liposome, which is all water soluble. The cell wall itself is made of lipid particles that's fat soluble. Now, so for the most part, all of the agents that are been really commercially produced, still not that many, but are agents that are water soluble. But they do have in the literature, and I think they have a few agents out there now, I'm not sure, that are available where obviously something fat soluble is not going to make its way into the water soluble area, but it finds a way to embed itself into the fat soluble membrane. And still then that whole complex can eventually get delivered, assimilated inside the cell, and you can deliver the fat solubilation as well. But for the most part, we're just dealing with water soluble entities right now. We may eventually develop the technology to deal more effectively with the fat soluble ones, but even though the liposome itself is in the fat soluble category, it in and of itself is not going to be dissolving other fatty substances. So it's not like taking two fat soluble things together that might interact. The liposome will pretty much stay on its own.
On that note, then, along with vitamin C, are there other, vitamins that you see a liposomal delivery being really effective for?
Yeah, well, Levy has, I think, 6 different products that they encapsulate, all good ideas. Magnesium is a really important one. Magnesium is quite poorly absorbed orally, just like regular vitamin C is quite poorly absorbed, yet phenomenally important for everybody on this planet. They get a little shy and they say lots of people are magnesium deficient. No. Everybody's magnesium deficient. It's just a question of how bad their deficiency is. So getting things like magnesium in the liposome form, you can so much more effectively get it inside the cell, which is especially important for magnesium because 99% of the magnesium in your body is inside your cells. So just putting it in the circulation is much, much less efficiently, you can imagine, than being able to get it inside the cell and release it there. So, and then the other things too are alpha lipoic acid, I think a vitamin B complex, a glutathione, a very important intracellular antioxidant, acetyl N-carnitine. Anything, I mean, the liposome is good for anything, but it's especially important and useful for something that has a naturally difficult time getting absorbed on its own. Okay. That way you bypass all of that and you get it in there. So there are some things that have not yet been done, but they are present in the literature. I'd like to see them happen eventually. I think liposome encapsulated ATP, your primary energy delivery molecule, would be phenomenal. Okay. The problem is though, is that making a liposome preparation, a quality one, is not easy. So Levy Labs has had 50, 100 or more different companies trying to just jump on their success. And in the process, they really produce products that have no liposomes at all and basically say, well, we'll continue until you stop us. The thing is it's a very complicated I think even online, for example, they talk about the ultrasonic cleaners, and you put in the lecithin, then you put it in the substance and turn it on, and magically you have liposomes. No, that doesn't produce a liposome. What it does do is it gives you a vitamin C that's in a miscible form with the fat so that it's more easily absorbed into the blood. But it's not in liposome, so you don't get the extra stage where you get absorbed into the cell. And that's why these have continued on there, because so many times someone who has never taken vitamin C in any form at all, and then let's see, they say company X with liposome encapsulated vitamin C that's not, but it does contain vitamin C, they feel better. Why? Because they're vitamin C depleted and they finally now have some vitamin C additional inside their body, but they have no idea and can have no idea of how much more important the liposome delivery is for a situation in which they're severely ill. A cancer, heart disease, these sort of things. Those conditions require optimal intracellular delivery to get an optimal result.
It really makes me think because, again, so many people out there are just trying to do the right thing.
Sure.
So they're told, take this, take that, take magnesium. Magnesium was a game changer for me as I was entering into perimenopause. I mean, it was like, I did not realize just how deficient I was. And I mean, it saved my life. I thought I was having a heart attack. But the point being, people are just
Magnesium plays a strong role in preventing heart attacks. You might have been on your
I mean,
way.
I was having horrible heart palpitations like so many other women that go through these hormonal changes. I mean, how does the everyday person out there, the person that's listening, evaluate a product? Like what do they look at to qualify if a product is worth taking?
Well, my goodness, that completely depends on the individual. I mean, they have to be very aware of their symptoms. They have to be very aware of what they want to accomplish. Is it an objective thing like a blood pressure? Is it less headaches? Is it more energy? More regular bowel movements? All of these things are, I mean, if you really want to be good about it, I mean, before taking a supplement, you ought to fill out for yourself a little questionnaire of like 25 of the most common symptoms in rate from 1 to 5, if you have that symptom or how prominent it is, and then start your supplement. And then several weeks later, you recheck it. Now, some people might say, oh, well, I would know. No, not really. I worked some 30 years ago with Dr. Hal Huggins in Colorado Springs, and we had a nice big summary that patients coming in with all variety of diseases, getting ready to get dental work, get started on supplements, get started on nutrition, and they filled out these forms. And most of them were feeling substantially better by the time they left after 2 weeks. But then I would follow up with them maybe 3 months later with a phone call, a new set of blood work, and a new questionnaire. And I might say, well, Mr. Jones, how are you doing? And, well, I guess I'm doing okay. I said, well, Mr. Jones, it said here you had severe knee pain. Oh, well, I don't have the knee pain anymore. It said, well, it says here you had about 3 or 4 headaches a week. Well, I don't have the headaches any. I mean, you literally had to point out to people, because being what we are, we always focus in on the remaining things. We completely forget about the stuff that we've been completely relieved of.
Do you think supplementation is necessary? I mean, a lot of people would say, coming from the nutrition side of things, we were told, as long as you get a varied diet and you're eating, the way you're supposed to, which, I mean, depends on who you ask, what is the way we're supposed to be eating? Supplementation should not be necessary. What do you think about that?
I think nothing could be more wrong than that. Let me tell you why. I mean, we now live in a cesspool of toxins on this planet. I mean, and the thing is all disease is increased oxidative stress. All toxins increase oxidation. So we're just subjecting ourselves to so much of this. And the thing is the only thing a quality diet does is give you new electrons and new antioxidants. Okay. But if you massively increase your toxins, that's just going to ameliorate the process. It's not going to block it. I mean, if we were Adam and Eve, maybe a good organic diet would do it. But especially things like, and what I'm saying applies to all the supplements, but especially to vitamin C, magnesium, and vitamin D3. Everybody on the planet is deficient in that and cannot possibly reach a normal state of levels of those vitamins and that mineral without supplementation.
Those three
in particular. I mean, there's a lot of other, vitamin B3, niacin. Most people are deficient in that. And severe deficiency can give you a deficiency disease like pellagra. But those three stand out. I don't want to represent that those are the only three you need by any chance. But those are the real biggies. Vitamin C, we lost the ability in our liver over the decades, over the centuries, to synthesize vitamin C in a 4-enzyme process from glucose. So we used to make our own vitamin C. And we used to make it on a grand scale. Animals that still make it, that are the size of a human being, will make 8, 9, 10 grams, 8, 9, 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C.
Wow.
And directly put it in the blood.
Versus a human, what just so people understand what the difference is, what would be the difference? Like, what do we create on average?
None. There are a few people that have really good genes that might make some, but for the most part, it's zero.
Wow.
And if you don't have a lot of vitamin C in your diet, a few months later, you die of scurvy. Just like
is this why I've been craving Caracara oranges like a maniac for the last few months?
That's hard to say. I mean, your body does have ways of giving you signals. So the other thing, too, is, I don't want people to think that I'm saying diet is irrelevant. Not even close. All right. But the most important things about a diet, in addition to being organic, is digestion. If you poorly digest, you pretty much negate all the value of the diet. Now, there was an example, too, where in studies where they looked at osteoporosis patients who took in a really good diet with a large amount of vitamin C, that had no effect at all on their osteoporosis. Whereas a similar group of patients who supplemented vitamin C had a very powerful anti-osteoporosis effect. Meaning, the conclusion drawing there is just the perfect diet didn't even dent the amount of oxidative stress that needed to be neutralized, that you needed to neutralize with your supplemental vitamin C.
I mean, it goes back to our prior discussion about, the gut and how healthy our guts are. And so many people who have lived on a processed, ultra processed, sugary diet have kind of destroyed their gut microbiome, right? So if you're drinking alcohol, you're eating a lot of sugar, and then just think that taking, in like a few added antioxidants through your diet is going to help. You're saying that we're probably not getting enough.
No, that's true. The thing about the gut, and it might sound like an oversimplification, but I've been working with this concept for 6 or 7 years now since I wrote the magnesium book, is virtually everybody, even when they feel well, not having a cold, not having the flu, have a colonization, not an infection, but a colonization of pathogens in their nose and throat. It's called chronic pathogen colonization. The microbes, the pathogens are growing, but they're not proliferating. But as they grow, what do? You swallow. Everything that a pathogen makes is toxic. All right. Then when the pathogens finally die, they release a large amount of free iron, which is highly toxic. Point being is, when you do simple interventions, and I discovered this with my work with the pandemic because I wrote a book called Rapid Virus Recovery based on hydrogen peroxide to deal with the COVID pathogen. The other thing that happens when you nebulize with hydrogen peroxide is your gut starts healing up rapidly. The gut has stem cells that replace the gut cells every 3 to 5 days. Meaning, if you can stop poisoning your gut completely and you only have a little bit of gut disease, you'll have a normal gut in 4 or 5 days. If you have a lot of gut disease, you'll have a normal gut in 1 or 2 months. Wow. And this is exactly what I saw. I see people that they start this, almost overnight, they got rid of their black mold problem. Okay. Another lady had a Crohn's disease son. Crohn's disease is supposedly incurable, bedridden. After 2 months of nebulization, almost biblical, he got up out of his bed and said, "I feel great," and never went back again.
Wow.
Other situations with chronic diarrhea act the same way. And also, I believe things like a gluten sensitivity all resolve if you stop poisoning the gut. So that's why
you're saying intake through the nasal passageways for that.
Well, not intake. The thing is the pathogens are growing there. And
no, but the nebulizer helps.
Oh, yeah, the nebulizer gets the nose, gets the throat, gets the upper lungs. Right. Which is where, that's not the only place that you can colonize. That's the most common place. And obviously the place that's directly in line with poisoning your gut 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's fascinating and makes so much sense. So if somebody is, they're looking in their medicine cabinet right now and they're like, does this supplement even work? Like, where would they go to even start evaluating what type of liposomal, delivery system supplement they should take? How would you give them advice on how to evaluate those different products out there that are liposomal?
Well, the three, well, they're all good, but the most important of the liposome supplements that Levy makes are the vitamin C and the magnesium. Glutathione is good, but the thing about glutathione is if you normalize your vitamin C and magnesium, you start making glutathione. But that doesn't mean that taking glutathione while you're sick is not going to get you better quicker as well. And then there's the B complex. Most people are very low in B complex. The alpha lipoic acid and the acetylcarnitine are other antioxidants that are good, but I wouldn't put them in the category of the vitamin C or the magnesium by any means. The thing is all quality supplements are basically antioxidant in nature at the molecular level. So anything that you take, even if it's not going exactly where you want it to, helps contribute to what I call your overall matrix of antioxidants inside the body. All right. And that's why, as important as vitamin C is, the other oxidants come in and make sure the vitamin C is always in a good reduced state, ready to donate an electron and either neutralize the toxin or bring an oxidized, inactive biomolecule back to a normal state.
So we're walking beings. Just really our goal is to try and prevent oxidation.
That's correct. I mean, I'm writing a new book now, Toxins Cause All Disease, and I can summarize it in one sentence, but there's a comma in there. The one sentence is, all disease is, not caused by, all disease is excess oxidation, and all excess oxidation is caused by toxins.
Wow.
After
Dr.
that, you break
Levy,
this.
that's like the mic drop right there. Literally, like, I can't wait to read your book, but it's one of those things where, and I have to ask you this question because I get so angry sometimes looking at social media and seeing what people with no nutritional or medical background are saying. I mean, if you were to recommend one type of diet, okay, would it be A, the Mediterranean diet, B, a paleo approach, or C, the carnivore diet?
I think your best diet would be a vegetarian diet with small amounts of meat. Okay,
so more Mediterranean diet.
Okay, well, I didn't know how I would categorize it that great.
Yeah.
But that's what I would favor: a vegetarian-based diet with small amount. You see, one thing too that a vegetarian diet almost always does by itself is gives you perfect food combinations. The food combinations are almost the complete determinant of whether or not your food putrefies or whether it digests. All right. The slower the gut goes, the more you start putrefying and the less you start digesting. It's kind of like if you throw a piece of meat on the floor, in 12 hours, it'll still be okay. In 24 hours, it's going to be stinking. In 36 hours, you can't walk in the room. It's the same thing inside your gut. The longer these things stay inside your gut, the more you subvert digestion with putrefaction. And the really perfect study done back in the 1900s by Dr. Ivan Pavlov, who won the Nobel Prize in digestion or physiology, is a Russian biochemist, a physiologist, excuse me. He would give bread bits and put them in the stomach, in stomachs of dogs, and it would take 1.5 hours, 90 minutes to leave the stomach, pass through the pylori to be processed. Then when he put meat chips inside the stomach, that took longer. It took 3 hours, then it'd go back to the rest of the system. Then he put the most popular combination of foods on the planet, which was bread with meat, and it took 9 hours to leave the stomach.
Wow.
So you cannot digest normally at all without honoring these food combining principles. It's and we got to remember, as I like to say, the locomotive doesn't go any faster than the engine. Okay, so if you're moving slow up top, you're moving slow up bottom. You may bounce back and forth, but everybody needs at least 2 bowel movements a day. Basically.
Okay, you just read my mind, Dr. Levy. How did you do that? I was just about to ask you, how many bowel movements should we be having a week? So
And
if somebody told you I have a bowel movement once a week, what would you think about that?
That's I'd say you either have a very sick person there or you have a person getting ready to be very sick. Okay, nothing good comes from that. Use the example too. I mean, I think young mamas know this. A baby eats, he poops. He eats, he poops. He eats, he poops. Okay,
8 times a day.
You don't have stuff hanging around. Okay,
yeah.
But we're forced to deal with schedules. We're doing something, and we suppress. All right, if you're working at home in your office and you've got your bathroom right next door, you might start noticing that it's very easy, especially if you eat 3 meals a day with a couple snacks, that you will be going 3 times a day. Okay, but you don't usually do that out of convenience. So we sort of train our bowels not to do what they naturally like to do.
I feel like I have a goal to meet. It's the bowel movement goal. I mean, once a day, maybe twice a day, but like 3 times a day.
Well, I got to tell you this too, since we suddenly slipped into bowel movement territory here, is the whole hydrogen peroxide nebulization thing. I was researching 6 or 7 years ago because I had a problem with sinuses. I read that magnesium could be nebulized. Then I read that peroxide can be nebulized. And wow, maybe that'll help all my infections. The first time I nebulized with hydrogen peroxide, 3% for 10, 15 minutes, no problem, did fine. The next day, I was 65 at the time. The next day, I had the most perfect bowel movement of my life. It was so perfect, I had never had a bowel movement like that in my life.
Wow.
I said, oh my God, this is what should be happening.
Yeah.
And that's how quickly, in my case, I didn't have advanced gut disease, but remember what I said about the stem cells, you stop poisoning the gut. And lo and behold, and since then, to add to that, I use my bowels as a monitor of whether I'm starting to get sick. For me, if you're starting to get sick, you're usually getting stuff in your nose and head and throat, and it's getting ready to grow. I will notice that my bowels are just not as perfect, maybe a little less formed, maybe a little looser. Yeah. Then I go, even though I feel fine, I'll go and do the nebulization, and they'll be perfect again the next day.
I wanted to talk a little bit about, kind of the perfect diet, because for me, we talked about vegetables, we talked about getting fiber, we talked about these bowel movements, we talked about how that's an indication of your health and why we really need to have more of these discussions. And there's just so much toxic information out there about how people are, quote, healing their guts and doing so much better on the carnivore diet. And I want to talk specifically, if you have just like a piece of advice for people, and as a bodybuilder, somebody that's, in the gym and working out a lot. And I know a lot of bodybuilders that listen to this podcast, like, what advice would you give them on building muscle and still keeping your gut healthy, still keeping your colon healthy, still eliminating properly? Like, is there a way to balance the two? Can we build muscle? When you talked about ATP liposomes, I got really excited. But like, how do we do that as people who want to honor our health, but still maybe compete?
Well, practically speaking, obviously, I think most people, if they feel their gut is fine, bowel movements are fine, no indigestion, no nothing, you don't necessarily need to rock the boat. However, I will say this, and this goes along the line of what I said about food combining, is the ultimate thing that needs to be done, if all other else has failed, is to do mono meals. You eat one type of food at each meal. You can still eat all the food you want, but you might eat fruit or salad in the morning, a meat dish in the afternoon, and a big vegetable dish in the evening. That probably could conflict greatly with what you want to present your guests at a meal as a chef, but that will give you your best chance of recovery. And then once you feel you have a normal gut again, then not doing mono meals, but just paying attention to proper food combining, I think will put you in good stead for the rest of your life. Now, with regard to bodybuilding, to me, it's less important on how you manipulate your diet. I mean, unless I haven't gotten into the bodybuilders that take large doses of creatine and this supplement and that supplement. But in general, for example, I mean, antioxidants are powerful. They have a lot of folks out there that have seen some studies that seem to indicate, vitamin C might not be good for your working out. Well, I can only tell you that 20 years ago, when I was still actively lifting weights, I had a clinic, and myself and my friends, we'd usually get about an IV 3 times a week. And I remember on one occasion I did an IV 3 days in a row, and incredibly, and most bodybuilders will appreciate this, after getting the 3 days in a row of 50 grams or more IV, just for good health, I found that all the exercises I did, I was able to lift 50% more, 50% increase in repetitions. I mean, wow. I was stunned. I mean, I was looking at my arm and I couldn't believe what I was doing with it. So again, and that goes back to what I said about vitamin C. We don't nearly have enough of it.
Wow.
We have to deal with our deficits. So the deficits are, we should be making 10 grams a day. And if we're stressed, that's the other part I didn't tell you. If that animal that makes vitamin C gets stress, a new infection, a new toxin, that liver will start making 20, 30, 40, 50 grams a day or more. So your liver immediately starts giving you a super high intravenous dose of vitamin C.
But we don't want to stress our bodies out. The goal is to, or not too much anyway.
Yeah,
a healthy amount of stress is good, but taking that supplementation and doing it with a delivery system that works with the body is really the optimal kind of, balance.
But the other thing I want to add too, I mean, with regard to the liposomes is, and it took me a long time before I was able to wrap my head around this, but an equivalent dose of liposome encapsulated vitamin C is better than even a slightly larger dose intravenously. That's how incredibly clinically impactful it is. And this is becoming very important now because I've worked with a lot of dentists for a long time, and they want to know how to get things so that the teeth extractions will heal well. And before it would be, intravenous vitamin C, this, that, and the other. Now I tell them, and it works just fine. I'll say you take 5 packets of the Lipo C 2 days before, the day of, and 2 days after, and your healing is going to go like crazy, and it does. And I've been in situations where the liposome encapsulated C has easily been equivalent to, if not better than, the impact of the IVC. And this is especially important now because for whatever reason, I don't know if it's FDA pressure or what, but they're really managing to make vitamin C expensive now, at least intravenously. I mean, probably 15 years ago, you get a nice 50-gram IV vitamin C for $100, $125. Now, depending on the area of the country, you might be looking $300, $350, $400, or somewhere in between. And, if it's not doing the magic that we thought it was, but we could get that magic at 1/4 the price with liposome encapsulated vitamin C, it's worth a try.
So 50 grams, that just stunned me what you said about that high dosage. So 50 grams is 5,000 milligrams.
That's 50,000 milligrams.
50,000. Oh my goodness. Wow, that's a lot. So how much are we supposed to be taking daily in order to not just meet the RDA, but to really thrive, to really have our bodies working optimally. And let's not talk about people who might need more or less, but just really like in the middle.
The average minimally toxic person. Okay. Yeah. I would say at least 9 grams a day, but preferably more in the range of 15 to 16 grams a day. Linus Pauling, before he died, was up to 18 grams a day. And well, people say, well, he died. Well, he died when he was 93, so give him a break. You know, so, but you're getting it. And the thing is, and that's, of course, if your bowels can tolerate it. If you're not taking the liposome, but you're taking the regular vitamin C, you really have to space it out. Because if you take a whole bunch at once, a lot of it makes its way down quite quickly to the colon, pulls in fluid, and gives you a loose osmotic diarrhea, which is not bad for you. I mean, maybe you don't like to have a loose stool, but it also cleans you out as well. But in terms of just a regular supplementation, you don't want to be spending all your time on the stool. So you want to be able to space it out. And that's another major disadvantage with the liposome C. You can take one large dose first thing in the morning and not be supplementing the rest of the day. If you use the regular vitamin C, you really have to be dosing at least 3 times, if not 4 times a day, to keep optimal blood levels for what you want to use to help support good health.
So we should be supplementing in the morning. That was kind of my next question. Does it hurt to supplement in the evening, or should we be taking like magnesium, for example? When I'm training hard, I tend to take it in the morning and in the evening. Do you have a recommendation on are there different protocols for each type of supplement?
Well, for vitamin C, I've run across an occasional person that says it energizes them and they can't sleep. I've never really seen that, but I just offer that as one possibility for one person. So for all intents and purposes, I see no consistent problem with taking vitamin C at any time of the day or night. Now, magnesium, it's a little different. Magnesium, especially if you take a potent form, like the liposome encapsulated form of magnesium, you take that and it's not a tranquilizer or a sedative, but it really relaxes you. And so don't take this in the morning if you want to be at your best in mid-afternoon for whatever you're doing. And it's a perfect adjunct then to take as you're getting ready to go to bed, along with whatever else your routine might be.
But unless you're a spaz like me, it kind of helps me get my thoughts in order and, calms me down a little bit when I'm just like, what? So as we kind of get to the end of our time together, first of all, this has just been so insightful, and you're so articulate about, understanding why liposomal delivery of a supplement can be just so advantageous for somebody seeking optimal health. And really kind of the brass tacks of it, how, aside from ATP, how do you envision the future of health and wellness evolving with technologies like this, with, personal health? What are we looking into our crystal balls and seeing, let's just even say in the next year or few years? I personally would love to just give me a scan and tell me what I need. I don't want to guess. I don't want to hope I'm absorbing things. Shouldn't we be at a point right now where we can just be more precise versus thinking, well, maybe this will work for you, maybe it won't? What do you think the future holds for us?
Well, certain things have to change for the future to hold anything for us. By that, I mean, we already have everything in integrative orthomolecular medicine, vitamin C, magnesium, other things, the hydrogen peroxide, you name it, to treat and for the most part cure all infectious diseases and tremendously improve all chronic degenerative diseases. But not only is it not being used, it's being actively suppressed. Okay, so our current medical system, I'll just say it, is evil. It's just evil, all right? It prizes the dollar over anything else. It spends an enormous amount of money to diagnose without caring whether or not you're ever made to feel better or your underlying disease is ever made to partially resolve. So until we get to matter of fact, somebody asked me some time back, what would be your one magic solution to this? And it really is quite simple. I'm not saying it will be done, but the simplicity is, at least for the United States, is Congress needs to pass a bill, and you could call it something like the Right to the Choice of Medicine Freedom Act, or the Choice of Medicine Freedom, meaning whatever you want to treat yourself with, whatever you want to go see, a witch doctor, a chiropractor, an internist, somebody that has a good reputation, whether or not you want to take a prescription drug or take vitamin C, your insurance or government insurance needs to reimburse you for your choice. Right now, I can't tell you the number of times I've had cancer patients say, well, I'd like to take vitamin C. What do you think, Dr. Levy? I said, well, take it this often, blah, 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 and over 3 months. And, well, doctor, that'd be about $5,000 worth of vitamin C. Said, I can go see my oncologist right now, and they'll pay for my chemotherapy. And the chemotherapy will cost $100,000. So the reimbursement will pay $100,000 for the chemo, but won't pay a penny for the $5,000 worth of vitamin C. That has to, in my opinion, that has to change first. But if that ever changes, if we ever actually give people the freedom, I mean, hey, look, they can be wrong. It doesn't matter. It's their choice, all right? Everything in our life is our choice. I mean, we've got no guarantee that the person who repairs our car is doing a good job or that they're competent. We don't have any idea. People say, well, is this product good? Is that a good brand? I said, I don't know. I'm not inside the manufacturing facility. I don't know if they're being fraudulent. I don't know how good their scientific testing is. Nearly 95% of everything we do is based on faith. That's whatever the product is, whatever's being done, is being done with a reasonable amount of attention to decency.
I just couldn't agree with you more. I feel like we are in a place where everything is about treating the we're not treating the issue. We're just putting a Band-Aid on it. And
modern medicine is almost purely diagnostics. I mean, they can diagnose the hell out of anything with their millions of dollars of machines and this, that, or the other, but they don't know a damn thing, or they don't care to know a damn thing about actually not only arresting a disease process, but even reversing it.
So aside from supplementation and obviously eating the right way, and the right way being, as you said, kind of knowing what to eat when, I think that's a big, really important thing that not enough people are talking about. And to get, certainly enough protein to build muscle and stay metabolically healthy. What would be your primary recommendation for people?
Well, I have about 500-page book that's going to address that. I would say this, because there's lots of things. And in giving you an answer, I feel neglectful because there's going to be a dozen things I don't mention. Let me just say that the entire principle of effective treatment for anything is to normalize vitamin C levels inside your cell. If you can make those vitamin C levels come to normal, then you have a normal cell, you have no more infection, you have no more disease in that cell or in the cells of that affected tissue. And so that brings you to the point then, what do I need to do to optimize vitamin C levels inside the cell? Well, as I mentioned in a moment earlier, when we talked about all toxins is all oxidative stress is disease, all toxins cause the oxidative stress, is you need to identify and eliminate, neutralize, or excrete all the toxins that you know that are coming into your body on a daily basis or being produced in your body. This is primarily dental toxicity. It's root canals that cause virtually all breast cancer. It's root canals that cause virtually all heart disease. Plain and simple, all right? And those have to be addressed. Then you start getting into heavy metal accumulations. It turns out the mercury and the lead and everything has accumulated to enormous amounts inside our body, and we all need to be on a regular form of chelation. Not necessarily prescription. There are non-prescriptive ways to do it. Doing a far infrared sauna is a good way to detoxify that as well. And we all have to be concerned now about persistent spike protein from the COVID vaccine and some cases of chronic COVID, but mostly the vaccine. This is just putting layer upon layer of extra toxicity on an already sick population. And we have specific ways to deal with the spike protein and that toxicity. So you address all of those factors, then you get to the proper supplementation. And then you get to the fact that hormone deficiencies, primarily three: sex hormones, thyroid hormone, and cortisol, hydrocortisol. Virtually everybody beyond a certain point in their life is deficient in those. But because everybody's in the same basket, we tend to ignore it and look over it. But the purpose of cortisol that's made naturally by your adrenal gland, now we're not talking prednisone and all the synthetic crap. We're talking about the natural corticosteroid that your adrenal gland makes, which is cortisol, also known as hydrocortisone. The primary purpose of that is to push vitamin C inside your cell. That's why steroids are initially so profoundly positive. You're sick, you're feeling this way, you're hurting here. They give you the corticosteroids, and then you feel great for a couple of days. Why? Because it took all the vitamin C that was in your extracellular tissue and pushed it inside the cells. But after a few days, especially if you're not taking in good vitamin C supplementation, that response burns itself out, and then you just have the corticosteroid causing side effects. So all of these things factor into the picture. I just couldn't give you a 2 or 3 sentence answer on that one.
Yeah, it just makes me think as soon as we're done, Dr. Levy, I am going to take my vitamin C.
Good idea.
I am going to be absolutely disciplined about it. This has been so great. I always end every interview with the same question for all my guests. If you could have your favorite meal prepared by anybody, either here with us or not, what would the meal be and who would make it?
Oh, it would be my fried white trout that we caught off the Gulf of America in Biloxi, fishing with my dad and my brother. My mother would fillet it, fry it perfectly, and make the most phenomenal tartar sauce that you've ever had in your life, along with fresh cut French fries and iced tea. That'd be it.
I love how you had that on the spot. That is amazing. I love it. Dr. Levy, thank you so much. We're going to look for your book. I'm going to make sure we put your information in the show notes along with Live On Labs and their liposomal supplements. And just thank you for clearing up so many important things for us today. I know a lot of people are going to really benefit from this.
Great. Well, thank you for having me over, Mareya.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal health advice. We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast. This podcast is not intended to replace professional medical advice, and the views expressed in this podcast may not be those of the host or the management. Hey, it's Chef Mareya, and thank you so much for tuning into The Real Dish. It means a lot to me that you're here. I hope today's episode has inspired you to take some proactive steps towards a healthier and happier you. Because just remember, bite-sized changes can lead to big transformations. But before you go, would you do me a big favor? If you found value in this episode, would you share it with 2 of your closest friends and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode? And if you really want to make this girl's day, would you leave a 5-star review? I do hear an angel gets its wings every time you do that. But really, this helps us spread the message of real life wellness to even more listeners. And everybody could use a healthy portion of that, right? Now, until next time, remember, you are the chef of your own kitchen. So feed your life well, make good decisions, prioritize your well-being, and remember, you need to take care of you because we only get one of you and you are a gift to everyone around you. So until next week, this is Chef Mareya signing off. And just remember, we're here to cook up a good time every single week. We'll see you soon.